today we have, as usual, the latest and greatest, what's new section in Power BI. I'm going to cover that today. Then afterwards, we will have Sergej and Christian from Markant, who will talk a little bit about their, let's say, their way to Microsoft Fabric. And lastly, we will have Gregor, who will talk about some updates of the Measure Killer 2.0. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or unmute yourself, raise your hand, whatever suits you best. Feel free to interrupt me as you wish. All right, let's start with the what's new section. First of all, first announcement, super happy to hear that we have the first Fabric in a day in Switzerland. And I just wrote Switzerland, but in fact, it's the first one in Europe and the second one in the world, as far as I hear. And I see Alex is even in the call. So Alex, probably you wish to say some words here.
Well, thank you for the plug. Yes, we're quite excited to be able to run Fabric in a day. Some of you will know the Dashboard in a Day program that has been fantastic in teaching people the basics around Power BI. With Fabric in a Day, we take that to the next level. Give you an introduction on how to work with the data engineering stack, the Dataflow Gen 2 that allows you to populate lakehouses in Fabric, and also then looking at building up reports based on Fabric artifacts in the One Lake. We've just actually gone through all the labs today, Nicholas and me again, just to be well prepared for our first session on the 18th of January in English and on the 8th of February then in German. The content will be available in German by the 1st of Feb, so it's a tough gig, but it's free. It's organized by Microsoft. We're just executing it on their behalf, and the links will be in the PowerPoint slide, I presume, that yes, people can use as well.
Yes, definitely. So I linked it on the date, so you can just click on the date and you will be provided to the English or to the German version. Thank you very much for that. I didn't inform Alex to talk, so thank you very much to putting you on the spot here. And yeah, I hope to see more in future, and not only from Allgeier, but as well a little bit hints to other partners. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to announce them in the user group that we have. So, and super happy to see that we have already the first one then in Switzerland. Next, once you did the Fabric in a Day workshop, probably you're interested in getting a certification. And just from today on, we will have the exam DP600. This is like the official, let's call it Fabric certification that you can do. It's quite new, as mentioned. It's really starting from today on. I just checked half hour ago, and you cannot register yet. So I guess today means US time today. So probably the next few hours, it will be opened to register, and it's still in beta. So just that you know. And yeah, feel free to register, get your certification. I will do that for sure, just when the time allows it. All right, moving on, coming a little bit really to the news of Power BI. One of the news that we got is that you can create now a custom message when it comes to requesting access to Power BI apps. Until now, if you see an app and you wish to request access, it was always like just the standard default message one, but now you can really customize it, create like, I don't know, a bullet point list, you can create a hyperlink or whatever, if you have a special kind of approval process, and you can put it in there. And just to show you live where to find and how it does it work, if you go to our Power BI workspace, and this is important, you have to create the app already. Once you do so, if I go to the three dots over here, you will see the app settings on a second place. And if I select it, down below, you see now that I can switch over here to replace with automated custom message. And now I can really create a custom message. And you see I have here some formatting options. So really easy to create it and save it. Any questions for that? I think so. Pretty easy one. So let me move on to the next one. This one is super excited. I really love to see that we now introduced new functions for the DAX query view called info. And for those who are familiar with DMVs and the TM schema DMVs, this is more or less replacing it, or not replacing, but enhancing it. The biggest difference is because it's a function, it's a table that you receive back. And as such, you can do joins, for example, between different info statements. And what does it mean? What do I do with that is, for example, if I go back to Power BI report, to my DAX query view, I can, for example, use the evaluate statement as usual and then write info dot. And if I do that, intelligence kicks in and you see what kind of functions we got here. And if I write info dot measures, for example, and run it, I will have an overview of all the measures in my data model. And I see that there is an internal ID for the measure itself, for the table, from where this measure is coming from, or where is it stored, let's say. I got the name, and even better, over here, I see the expression. I see the data type as an ID, or, I can also see the description if I have a description of it. And this makes it super easy for me to get a quick overview of my measures. And as mentioned, you can now combine this table with further info function tables. Let's say, as an example, I have here the table ID. In my case, it's always the same, and I pretty know very well from where this is coming from. But imagine having hundreds of measures with different kind of tables. Where is it stored? How do you know where it is exactly stored? So therefore, I copied, or let's say I created it, a new statement calling again the info measure with different kind of fields that I wish, and info tables with two fields in there, the ID and the name. And afterwards, I join them, as you see, and just select some measures that I need. And once I run it, pretty easy, I again have my measures with the description and the formula, as well as the home table now. Instead of the ID, the name of the home table. And this name, you will find it on the right-hand side. I have a name called KPI, a table called KPIs. This is where it's coming from. Pretty neat. And lastly, probably to show you another one, this one is not for the measures, but for the columns. And in there as well, I'm just combining to see from where the column is coming from. I have a quite useful information here. Not only the table and the column name from Power BI, but as well the column name from the original data source. So if I renamed a column within Power BI, I can check now pretty easy how the original name is from the data source and really have a documentation on top of it. Right, any questions to that?
Nice.
Yeah, I love it. Let me check here if I have some questions. No hands raised. Anything in the chat? Don't think so. All right.
Christian, one question. Yes. So I can do this for any type of data set. It doesn't have to be premium or anything, right?
Yes. This works for any kind of data set.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the blog post over here that I shared in the link, they did a quite nice trick. They connecting to the data set via Excel and run these statements, so they can update the Excel to get always a fresh documentation of all the tables and measures and stuff like this. So this way you can even a little bit automate it. What I haven't tried it, if you can connect to yourself, meaning in the data set, connect to your own data set and get this information to have it automatically. I haven't checked it out, but I'm sure there will be a way as well to do that, to have it in a more automated way. Right. Let me move on with the next update. We updated the dashboard web content tile. So for those who are not so familiar with it, talking about the dashboard, not the Power BI reports, but the dashboards in the service. In there, you can create tiles, and one of those is the let's call it HTML content tile. And as you see in the screenshot, in this content tile, you can really add HTML code, and it will be embedded as coded. But the thing is, it could be a risk, a security risk, to have such kind of embedded features. And we got the feedback that there should be a setting to be able to disable that. We introduced that as well. And now, due to security risks, we even decided to disable this content tile per default. It doesn't mean that you cannot do it anymore. You just need to go to the tenant settings and enable it, or enable it for a specific group. It will still work. But just that you know, if you don't see it anymore and you used it, it could be that in the tenant settings, it's disabled. Right. Moving on to the next one. We got a few new formatting options, especially for bar and column charts, as well as series stacked column charts. As an example, we can now set up the transparency of the bars. Let me show that quickly. If I go here to my Power BI desktop again, if I go to the report view, if I select a column or a bar chart, in my case a bar chart, in the format pane, I have now bars, and in there I can set up the transparency. And if I put in, for example, I don't know, 50% or 66 or whatever, you see the transparency kicks in. So you have a little bit more influence on the visual appearance of your bar and column charts. There are quite a few updates on the formatting. So for those who are interested in, feel free to check out the link again. Everything is listed there and explained. But I think this was one of the most interesting ones that you can use now. With that, I'm already done with my part. And if there are no further questions, I would ask Christian and Sergej to pop in and present their topic. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Christian. Welcome, everyone.
Give us just a few seconds so we can switch.
Hello, everyone. It's Christian. We have in the Markant Group an unpopular governance task. We would like to show you our solution. Why do we have this? What is this unpopular governance task, and what do Markant do? Markant is a service provider between retail and industry. And because of that, we have one of the core services what Markant provides is payment services. Within these payment services, we have the central settlement, and because of this, we have to do a lot of auditing. One of these auditing methods is called in Germany ISAE, and we do. Markant has BaFin bank license. We have to do a lot of bank things, and therefore a lot of audit activities are BaFin and ISAE controls. So why to do this? We have, because we have to do ISAE controls, we have to report different Azure infrastructure informations about our all Azure components. And this is my first dive into this topic. Where do I get this data from? This data is provided by the so-called Azure Resource Graph. So this is the UI, the Azure Resource Graph. And this is the query that I sent to the API. Maybe you are familiar with this. So what to do? I get information from there, but I need this information in a reporting form in Power BI, report in Power BI. So I need to do this in Power BI, and it should be automatic. So how do I get this into Power BI? Before we show it, a few months ago, we had a conversation within our team. So we have a colleague called Victor. He told to Chris once a day, Chris, did you see the capabilities of Fabric, especially notebooks? What? I have to try. So at the same day, we talked about it. I told Chris about my problem, about my issue to get this data you've seen before within Power BI. And my big problem was to call the API with the pagination. I need to get 11,000 rows, but I get only 1,000 rows. So I struggled with it. So our target was get all resource status information, what we need for the ISAE reporting, and report them in Power BI. Quite simple. I have to do it all automatic. How to do? I didn't know. I didn't get an idea anymore. Chris?
Yes.
Of course.
So with this problem, Sergej came to me and asked Chris, how can we do this? And as you've seen, I heard Victor and our team saying, yeah, why don't try it in Fabric? So yes, I did. I came to Sergej and asked Sergej, where can I get this data? I need to present in Power BI. Then he showed me this query, this
Beautiful query, yes.
beautiful query, thanks, in Azure Resource Graph. So you have to know I'm not a BI specialist, but I'm a software engineer. So I asked Sergej, can you please press a function of where? I want to see where this data comes from.
Crazy approach.
So he did, and I watched here, and I've seen there's an API which is called from the Azure Resource Graph, and yeah, we scrolled a bit and saw the API call. And we found it. We dived a bit deeper into the request, and we saw the request body with some information. As you can see here, there's what kind of request is this? There's a body, there's the query, the custom query Sergej wrote, we can find here. So I thought, if this is a simple API call, I can do this with Python.
Just to mention, Chris is a Python fan, a big Python fan. So he took this approach.
Yeah. So I thought maybe let's write some lines of code. You can see here. We don't have to watch this in detail. We will see it later on. For this, I developed. I used the API call. I saw it in the Azure Resource Graph. This came out. I tried it locally on my machine, and it worked. And so I saw the data. I gave it this code snippet to Sergej, and we tried.
Yes, I tried it in Power Desktop. It looks very good. You can see it's a pretty screenshot, but there's a big but. Then data came in. I was very happy. And then I published it to service and get this failure or error messaging. So I couldn't refresh this data set anymore. because there are not enough libraries, Python libraries in Fabric or P1 Power BI capacity. Okay, what to do? I called Chris. Chris, help me, please. I I don't like this. So Chris did another try. It's in Fabric. Now we turn to Fabric and try to use the notebook, write Python code. Then within this Python code, our custo query to the resource graph API and create the result as such as a table, as a semantic model at the end.
Yeah. But before we can write the Python code in our notebook, we have to do some steps before. I will show you here. So the first step, we have to create a lakehouse in Microsoft Fabric in our workspace. When you can't see the lakehouse here, as mentioned in the slide and the notebook, make sure to switch to the data science part in Fabric. So I can create the lakehouse here. I give it a nice name, Azure Asset. I click on create, and I've done the step. I've created a lakehouse. So after this step, we recognized we have to store the secret information we use to call the Azure API. We have to store them because, of course, we don't want to show them in our notebook. So we put it in an Azure Key Vault space, so client ID and client secret, to use it later for the API call. Yeah, next step, we created the notebook. You can, in the Lakehouse, you have the option to open the data notebook. You can see on the left side of the slide. Click on it, new notebook, and you have a notebook. You can write your lines of code there and use regular Python code. So from here, we jump into Microsoft Fabric, into our workspace.
Live demo.
In the created notebook, yes. At the top of it, I've defined some variables. Because the session is recorded, I won't show this. For example, tenant ID and some variables of this kind. So in the next step, we can define some imports we need to write the code. I've done this here. We can execute this, for example, request JSON for the API call and pandas for the small data engineering part. In the next step, I've defined a variable for the batch size for the paginated API call. Execute this. The next code cell here is a bit more Python code written for the authentication part. So I have created a class called BiraAuth for the Bira authentication. And in the method here, I defined the login Microsoft URL with the tenant ID I've defined at the start. And here, a very cool function, I can use the client ID and the client secret I've defined in the Key Vault using Microsoft Spark Utils library. I've got to define the URI of the Key Vault, and then I can use the Key Vault directly here, defining the secret I've created, and I can read the secret of this variable right here in the notebook. Very cool. So I've created a context. I sent this context to the Azure Management API, and then I got the Bira authentication token I can use to call the paginated API of Azure Resource Graph.
So we have to run the code.
Yeah. Get to execute. this. So in the next part, a little bit longer, I've defined some, I called it helper methods for the API call. And the first function here creates a request to the Azure Resource Graph. So as you can see here, there's a custom query. The custom query Sergej wrote in the UI. I copied this one. So this you can see here, the syntax of Custo. Later we will see the results. We put this here in the JSON body we saw earlier in the network tab of our browser. In the options part, we have some information for the batch processing. For example, the batch size we've defined at the start of the notebook, and some more variables there. I've written here a small helper method to get the number of total records for the pagination task, a calculation function for the amount of needed batches, simple math. And here we have a method called Azure API paginated. I put it all together here. I've written above. So I have a simple loop, a loop over the calculated batch size. Then I sent the API call. You can see here we have our authentication. We will set in the next step. Then we load the results, put it into a list, and the list we will use later on.
Here to execute these parts of code.
Yes, thanks. We have to execute. So next step, we create the bearer access token. So we call the function from above. Then we define the columns we expect from our result list. And so we can create a pandas data frame. So the data is the results of our Azure call. We can say which columns we expect. We set a name for the index column, and then we hopefully get our data frame with the data loaded from the Azure Resource Graph. It may take some seconds, and there we have our result table.
11,000 rows.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
You can see it here, the amount of rows, 12 columns we have loaded here.
So my struggle pagination issue, yeah, it's solved.
Yeah, so in this table, like Sergej said, we have all results included. So we don't have manually call 11 times this API. We have it all here done with the for loop. We can use, of course, the standard functionality of pandas data frames. For example, we can describe our data. We have some statistic information about the data, but we can also do data filtering, data cleaning, such parts. We name columns, do aggregations with some columns. We can do all this statistic stuff. We can do with pandas data frames. We can also do this here in our Fabric notebook. Yes, I've executed this, perfect. And in the last step, second last, I create a Spark data frame of our pandas data frame. And with this Spark data frame, I can load the data from the data frame to our created Lakehouse. We do this in the last step of the notebook. It's executed. All right. When I switch here on the side, I come to the Lakehouse we created in the first step. Go to preview. It may take 2 or 3 seconds.
Oh, it worked earlier today.
There we have. So the columns we defined in the notebook, we have also here, and showing the first 1,000 rows, and we can use this data now for our problem.
The further steps. For example, to do reporting.
As a next step, I just want to show the scheduling of the notebook. We've done this. We can click on the three dots here. We have the section schedule, and there we can define a regular run. We do it, this example, on 15. But
in the afternoon, it's okay.
No problem. The regular use case we reload in the night, so in the morning there are the latest data for the customers. So let's jump back to the slides, and I give to Sergej.
Yeah, I don't know why, but Christian, maybe you can help me. And to have a refreshable and schedulable semantic model, I don't know why, but we have to create a new one. Right? I don't know.
Because the default one will automatically be updated, and in the default one you have all the tables that you created in the Lakehouse, and it's better to then create your own. Yeah.
So we created our own, a new one, schedule it. You can see it on the slide, and after that I can access the data from Power BI desktop and report our data to our colleagues. So this is a small overview of our used resources. The source of all these things is the resource graph API. We use the Key Vault to authenticate, and we can report. We can use Power BI to report these things. Our learnings.
Yes, the first learning we learned from the project. We couldn't do a very custom data ingestion, so you're not you don't have to use the connectors who are defined in a static way.
The web connector, for example, and do it in Power Query.
For example,
So this is the crazy stuff to do a pagination in Power Query for me.
So there's a big independence from the given connectors. You can write, if you are familiar with Python, you can write the data load with code. So you can use libraries for that. You can use custom code, and so you can get nearly all data. Yes, so it's very flexible. Yeah, for me it was I was having fun by writing code instead of the manually configuration of data sources and connectors. It was fun. I liked it to try out Fabric with the notebooks, and great experience.
I had also fun to see this. How do you do it for me? What was not so fun, using Python as a plain connector in Power BI desktop, you can, as you saw before, you cannot update the data in service. And we have the time with the custom data ingestion, we have better versioning and maintainability, and do every day, every hour, our adjustments if we need. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. I would have one, two questions. I saw in a previous slide, I think you said direct query and that you start from Power BI desktop. Are you really using direct query, or are you leveraging direct lake mode now?
It's really direct query.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a reason why not going with direct lake now?
We just tried it. It was okay for us.
Okay.
You can give me a hint how to do. Talk about it.
I mean, the most easiest way would be if you start in Power BI service, where you created a semantic model and just say new report at the top. And then you are automatically in this direct lake connection and just create the report in the service. The difference is it will be faster in simple terms.
I will test it.
Yes, please do so and let me know.
I will test it.
Because direct query is not so well compressed and not so well, from a performance point of view to read the data.
For this amount of data, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Just that, that's one thing that I would try because you have now Fabric and you would then leverage the full potential out of it. That's okay. And from the Python notebook, I see you're using the ADL library to authenticate. Why not the MSAL? Was that documented this way?
I found it on the Stack Overflow, so I used it.
Okay.
And it worked.
Okay. I think the ADL will once be deprecated.
Okay.
Just that you know. So the MSAL, so the Microsoft Authentication Library, is the new way to go. Just as a hint as well.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience or from Teams?
Well, what about the Azure Resource Graph connector that was published in November? Have you tried that?
Not yet, no.
So this is where the Microsoft team is always one step ahead. So have a look. They published a specific Azure Resource Graph connector just last November.
Okay.
Might be also worthwhile looking at if you want to just plug it straight in without Python.
Okay. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
We'll try.
And that's the thing with Fabric. You go ahead and you create a workaround, and then Microsoft goes ahead and solves it for you 2 months later.
Yeah. Any further questions, comments? It doesn't look like so. Thank you very much. It's really insightful. And with that, I would then hand over to Gregor. Gregor, are you ready?
Yes.
Very good. Feel free to take over the screen and present.
Sure. Second. Yeah, hello everyone. My presentation is all about our Power BI external tool called Measure Killer. My name is Gregor Brunner. I'm the founder of a small consulting and development company that is specialized in Power BI. And we have started building Measure Killer around 1.5 years ago. Now we already have a really nice version and we're continuing to develop this thing. And I'm going to show you today the version 2.0 that will come out in the next few weeks. So what is it all about? Measure Killer is to find and remove the unused measures and columns in your data model, in your semantic model. And then it can do a lot of other things when you can run it in the Power BI service. Generally, the tool is free to use, so you can just download it from measurekiller.com or get it through the Microsoft Store. But we also have a paid version, especially for the bigger companies, an enterprise version, basically, where it can run in the Power BI service in a premium workspace. And I'm going to show both of that here today, and I will let you know which part is the free and which one is the paid version. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat or just come off mute and let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to start now. Yeah, so on the website, we have everything, including the download, and I'm just going to jump into the main view. So something maybe to remember here is I'm going to show a very early version of Measure Killer. So we still have some bugs here. Some things might not work. We're developing this every day. So yeah, it's still maybe a little buggy. So if something goes wrong, that's part of the deal, basically. So Measure Killer has 5 modes. Yeah, we started with the first one where you can analyze a single report data set, and then we went into the shared datasets, meaning we have multiple reports connected to one model. And then we went in the Power BI service. So actually those 3 modes here, they are part of the paid version. And here, basically, I can analyze something without having any Power BI file open. I can just log in and it will run in the service. And also here, and this tenant analysis, this is something really cool where we can run our logic over a whole Power BI tenant and get some really interesting stuff. Yeah. But we will start small with an easy report where we can just see what this tool can do. Yeah. And generally, I think the main benefit is that in Power BI, we have a best practice, which is only load the columns that you really need. And we know this is a great best practice in theory, but unfortunately, in practice, this is almost impossible to achieve because you don't know what you will need. And as soon as you start building your report, you don't remember anymore what is currently in use. And there are a couple of external tools that can help you with this. But what is special about Measure Killer is that it's looking into the data model and the report. So it will check what is used in a measure. For example, if a measure is referencing a column, but it will also check the filters, conditional formatting, basically anything to make sure that when it suggests you to remove something, nothing will break down. It even checks Power Query and incremental refresh, all those special things. There are some limitations. I don't want to say it's perfect, but most of the time, everything should be fine. Yeah. So I have this sales report open, and I can just run. I can just select the report here, and then I click on Run. Yeah. And then I get the main output of Measure Killer, which is this table here. We can see first thing maybe is to look up here. 52% of my model is used and 48% is unused. Yeah? This is a tiny report. Obviously, it's like 3 megabytes, but some of our clients have run this thing on 20 gigabyte models, and they realized that 70–80% is unused, and nobody even knew that. So it really helps you to cut down the size of a model and make everything faster. So in here, in this output, we can see every row here is an artifact, meaning a column or a measure. It could also be a calculated column. So everything here is part of our model, and then we can see the red and white rows if they are used somewhere or not. So red means it's not used anywhere. And if it is used, for example, this product cost column, I can open it and I can see, for example, where it's used. This product cost column is used in a measure, in the cost measure. Yeah, and the cost measure is in my measures table. Okay. But then I can also check maybe some measures or columns that are used more widely. For example, this profit measure, it's used in 3 other measures. Yeah. And I can see that it's used 9 times in visuals across my report. And then I can see the title of those visuals, the type of a visual, on which page, and all those kind of things. And I can go through my report, check everything, or I can just say, okay, you know what? I don't care about this. I just want to see maybe my biggest columns, right? That's where I want to start. So for example, here, the order number column from my fact table, it's the biggest one in the model, and it's actually not used anywhere. And then, for example, the key columns, I can see they're used in relationships. So we're also tracking active and inactive relationships, pretty much everything. Okay, so once I have this, maybe I want to go ahead and say, okay, so let's remove something, right? Then we come to this next tab here where we can remove, we kill, that's where the name actually comes from, killing measures and columns. And you can see here there's 2 parts, measures and calculated columns we can remove directly. So meaning we can write to the model. It's similar to executing a C# script in Tabular Editor. I can just remove those things directly. For example, here I can say, okay, those three unused measures and one calculated column, kill all, boom, it's gone. Oh, and now I get a new unused artifact, meaning this year-to-date cost, it was used before, but now that I removed those three, it was only used in one of those. So now it's newly unused. So because of this kind of cascading, it might take several runs here, as you can see, to remove everything. But I can just go to kill all again, and then we can see that it will just disappear from Power BI quickly. You can see here it's gone. Yeah, just execute this process, and we can make sure that nothing broke down. And that's basically it. Yeah. Of course, one might think, oh, this is really risky. What if I do something wrong? And for that, we have also, first of all, we always recommend people to keep backups, right? You never know if something goes wrong. But only when I hit save here, actually, it will overwrite the old version. And also, in case something really went wrong, we have this restore functionality for all measures and columns that you ever removed. So this saves this outside of Power BI in a backup folder. Actually, in this new version, we can also set the folder to be in a OneDrive. So you can see here we have a couple of backups in this OneDrive folder, and I can see all the artifacts that have been removed by myself or by a colleague who has been working with backups in the same folder. And we can also see which report when something was removed. And then I can just put it back in here, basically. Yeah. So every time I remove an artifact, it will automatically generate this backup. And you can see here, those are all the ones I just removed. And I can just select them and, for example, say restore. And then it puts them back in here. I get a warning from Power BI because I restored a calculated column. Those need to be refreshed. So I'm just going to do this now. And then it's back in the model in case I want to keep them in. Yeah. Do we have any questions to these things that I already showed? I don't really see the chat, or maybe in the audience.
I see no questions.
Okay.
Sorry, we had the record. I see no questions in the chat and no hands raised. Everything good?
Great. So, okay, so this is removing measures and calculated columns, but what about the real columns, right? The ones that come into Power BI through Power Query, the real data columns, not the calculated column. We don't want to use calculated columns so much anyway, as you know. To remove those columns, Measure Killer lets you select, so we have 4 tables in our model where we have unused columns. In total, we have more tables, as you can see here on the right, but only 4 tables have unused columns. So we only have those to be selected here. And then you can see they're sorted by the unused size. So my fact table, obviously, because of this really big column, has the most size I can save. So I can now generate a new M code. And usually I choose the remove other columns. This is kind of nicer than the remove columns. It's just the syntax in the end. And I can copy this, go into Power Query here. And then the only thing I need to do is go to the advanced editor here on top. And then I just select everything and I paste this new code that Measure Killer generated for me. It takes the previous code, it takes everything before and just copies this thing here. And then I execute that, and you can see it just removes the columns that it says is unused. And it's really nice to remove other columns because I could always select them back in, maybe if I want to do that later. Yeah, I just hit close and apply. And then, of course, I can also save my report maybe and see the effect that it had on the size and everything. And we can do this quickly. I'm just going to save here. We can see this is the report I just saved. And before it had 1.6 megabytes, now it has 1.27. Yeah. because I took out those columns, obviously. So I can do this for all the tables. I'm not going to do this now. That's kind of boring. But this is kind of the main or the basic functionality of this tool. Yeah. We can also export everything. We have an Excel export and a JSON. With JSON, you get all kinds of details, but it's harder to read. And Excel, it's still a little buggy actually, because the file name you have to write yourself, and this will be fixed. But where is it? Did I put it in the wrong folder maybe? Export, oh, I put it in the wrong folder, yep. I want it here. There we go. In the Excel file, we can just see a lot more stuff. So it's some kind of documentation of everything. And we can also see the DAX expression here, which is quite handy, of all the measures and the calculated columns. We can also see the size of the column. So we get a really nice documentation of everything. Can even see some visual IDs, coordinates, things like that. Yeah. All right. We can also search this table, which might be interesting. For example, if I only want to see everything that was used in a relationship. So if I, for example, look for a relationship and I have to turn on this search all levels. Now, for example, I can see all the keys basically in my data model because it will search for used in relationship. Yeah. So I can slice and dice this in a lot of ways. I can see even, I don't know, if I have any map visuals, which columns those are. I can see what's happening on my pages. It gives you a lot of options. And besides what is obviously not used, there could also be something that is only used once, and maybe it's not really needed, this reference. So for example, I think we have one, let's see. Oh, no, this is not this data set. But yeah, it really depends. Like here we have some things used. Okay, I will show this in the online version then. Yeah.
Hugo, we
Okay.
have hands raised. Probably
Yes,
a question.
sorry.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to know if it's gonna work in case that we are working in a golden data set approach, no? Just having one data set and a few reports that are related to this specific semantic model.
Yes, that works too. It just, you have to select a different mode. So there you need to select either the second mode. This is part of the free version. This means you need to download all the reports yourself, and you need to have the data set on your machine, and then you can analyze all of it. Or if you want Measure Killer to do all the work and find them, you need to run the online modes, and I will show those next.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I see Nicola, please.
Yes, I would have another question. So I see, I guess that's just what you wanted to show. I really like this tool. I'm using it a lot. But what I had in the past was reports where you had multi-layered measures that one referenced the other, which was unused. I had to run Measure Killer multiple times to really dig down into the ones which weren't used. Is that what you now improved on version 2?
Exactly. That's so this is not completely finished yet. What we're trying, so now let me show you. We have this year to date. Which one is that? Year to date costs. You can see here. This one is used, right? But it's only used by a measure that is actually unused. So that's the one you mentioned, right? And then you need to remove something, and then later on remove, like you need to run it multiple times. Now with this version, we will flag those. This will be yellow soon. We haven't built this yet, but this will be yellow because it's only used in unused things. It means it will fall out sooner or later, right? What we already have is if you do the kill all here, you don't have to run Measure Killer again. It will immediately tell you it found something new and you can remove it right away. But just in the results table, we don't have it yet. So, but this is definitely will be part of this version.
Super cool. And just one more thing, at Power Query, you were able to automatically add to the model. You don't have to copy it anymore, is it right?
No, you still have to copy that.
Oh, okay.
But we will, in a next version, this will be also done automatically, I think, because, yeah, I think we're kind of ready to tackle this as well. But so far, in this 2.0 that we'll release in 2 weeks or so, you still have to copy paste manually. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Sure. Okay, so let's jump in the Power BI service, because this is where we have actually done most of the work. And like I said, this is part of the paid upgrade. If anybody is interested or your company is interested in trying this out, we also offer a lot of trial licenses, so it's not a problem to see and try it out for free, obviously. When I do this, we're doing an API call to the Power BI service. So I need to authenticate with my user. Yeah? Meaning I have to have a data set. This data set needs to be in a premium workspace, so either a PPU or Fabric or premium capacity. And then I want to analyze this data set for all the reports maybe that are connected to it. And we have two different modes for that. We have the normal mode that just searches with my user everything that it can find. But I don't have access to all the workspaces, and I might leave out something. That's why we also have this other mode that is for tenant administrators only. I will start with the simple mode for every user just to see the difference. So I select the workspace where my dataset is that I want to analyze, and I want to analyze this weather dataset in the MK workspace. And you can see we have a couple of reports connected here. Actually, we have a lot of reports connected, but just to simplify things, I will start in an easy way. I just select this dataset here. What is also new now, you can see we have small and large storage format. We can see who is playing around with this when it was created. I click on next, and now it's asking me, where do you want to search? And in our tenant, I have access to almost every workspace because our tenant is quite small. But I'm just going to select this one workspace to show you for this use case, basically, what we have in there. 1 second. Oh, I think I selected the wrong workspace here. 1 second. Yeah, I actually have to select the MK, not this Corona thing. That's why I didn't find anything. Here we go. So we have this weather data set, right? And then it finds the reports that are connected to it. And this also looks for paginated reports and Power BI reports. You can even drag and drop local files in here. So you can add analyze in Excel files, because we know that those will not end up in the Power BI service, right? You can add, I don't know, Power BI, PABIP, whatever it is, you can drag and drop it here if you want it to be part of this analysis. Because sometimes maybe the report will not be in the service yet, but it should be part of the analysis that we're doing, because we want to make sure nothing breaks down, right? So I can take out something and then I can just, whatever, maybe those are not really important, they can break down. And then I click on run. And now Measure Killer does an XMLA connection to the dataset to get the metadata. So what's important is the tool generally only analyzes the metadata from the report and the model. It never looks into the actual data. That's why also the speed of the analysis depends on how many columns and measures you have, but not about the rows. Doesn't matter if you have 1 row or 10 billion rows. So we get an updated output now of our dataset, and you can see here that some artifacts don't belong to the dataset anymore, but they're part of the report, right? Those are report level measures. So those are also visible here if somebody built measures on top of the dataset. But generally, in the dataset, we can see, for example, this displayed icon is used in an icon map in two different reports. Yeah. And you can see the page and where and whatever. So this is basically the shared dataset mode, but the online version of it, basically, where it runs in the service. And I don't need to have anything on my machine running. I only need to log in with my account, and that's it. The only limitation here, like I said, the dataset has to be in a premium workspace, but with those info functions in DAX, maybe we can also extend that soon to pro workspaces, because that should work actually. What I wanted to show before is you can see here, this table, everything is unused, just the Stat column is used. But this is used in a relationship. So what this tells me is the whole table, only one column is used in a relationship. Why do I need the relationship? This tells me I can actually kick out the whole table. Yeah. Because at least for now, it's not really needed because the relationship doesn't do anything if no other field is used anywhere. And in this online mode, what is different here is I can also remove artifacts, and I just do this by writing directly to the XMLA endpoint of the dataset. So I can write to the dataset to remove something. For example, I can say I want to remove this measure. And obviously this is risky. If you write to the dataset like that, you cannot download it anymore. That's a limitation of how the XMLA endpoint works. If a dataset is modified by it, it cannot be downloaded anymore. That's why we also issue this warning here. In my case, I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to remove it, and then it will be gone. And the same like the offline mode, it is back here now as a backup. And I can also restore it. So I'm just going to put it back, and it's back in the dataset. So this is how it works in the offline mode.
Gregor, we have a hand raised. Alex.
I just wanted to add a little thing to that. Careful when you use XMLA endpoints on default direct query semantic models. You create them in the browser. As soon as you start messing with them using XMLA, you can't actually edit them in the browser anymore. From that moment, you'll have to edit them using XMLA or tabular editor or whatever else you want. So be careful with XMLA against the Fabric direct lake models, which is the default semantic models and any model you create in the browser. We've run into a couple of issues there. Can't edit them in the browser after that.
Those default models have some serious limitations. I mean, I really don't understand what the point is anyway, really.
Thanks for the hint, Alex. One note, Gregor, you mentioned that you cannot download the dataset or the semantic model anymore once updated through the XML endpoint. One little mark here is if you do Git integration, you can. But this is
the tabular editor. I saw something, a workaround, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Even from the browser, you can do it, or you need to do it as a PBIP and then.
You need to do it as a PBIP.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen something there. Of course, like, yeah, nothing is 100%, right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so now let's see the full version of this. And this is, I think, really interesting when I run this tenant admin mode. Here, you can see in the UI in Power BI, right? I can see the lineage of this data set. And I can see that there are a couple of reports connected to it, page init reports, and even we have downstream models, right? Those are composite models that have been built on top of this and added some stuff or maybe taken away some tables. The problem we have here is even though you can see I have access to a lot of the workspaces where people have built those reports, there is almost every time something else somewhere. And this is a kind of a black box. Yeah, that's why it's really important to run Measure Killer as a tenant admin if you really want to analyze a data set completely. And then you can select if you still want to limit everything, because obviously in some organizations we have tens of thousands of workspaces and it might take some time. In our case, our tenant is not that big. It will go very quickly. And just like before, I need to select the data set that I want to take a look at. And now what we can see is already some workspaces here, my personal user doesn't have access, but I'm an admin and I can do those API calls, but still my user doesn't have access. So I need to give myself access kind of, and Measure Killer will do this automatically. Yeah, so I'm selecting the same data set as before. I click on next, and now I have the full lineage of my semantic model. I can even see reports in the workspaces where I don't have access, and we will still be able to fetch them and have them part of the analysis, because when I click on run, it will give me access temporarily and then remove it again. But this view here is really hard to get, and it doesn't exist natively in Power BI, because you can see here we have our parent data set. We have a couple of reports in various workspaces. We have downstream models. So like I said, those are the composite models. And then we have reports built on top of those. We even have models in 2 different layers. So we just built this for testing, obviously, to have a full picture of everything. Even we have personal workspaces here. You can see there's a report in a personal workspace built on top of this data set. Those are even harder to access, and we don't really do that. But we show that there is something going on here. We can also see that somebody built a data set in a pro workspace. Those are, like I said, it's a limitation right now because we cannot do an XMLA connection there because it's a pro workspace. So that will not be part of the analysis, but everything else I can either include or I can take it out. And here, just like before, I can also drag and drop stuff here, however I want. The goal is to keep all the reports that are important, to make sure I get a full picture, and then I can remove the columns and measures from the original data set and make sure nothing breaks down. Any questions?
I see no questions. Everything good?
All right, so let's run this. You can see it's asking, oh, you don't have access to PPU test. You want to grant access? Yes, sure. We will now give contributor access. That's the lowest level that we need to analyze the metadata of the report. So Measure Killer is granting this access now to my personal user through the admin API calls. And now it's running through the data set and through those reports. So this takes a little bit of time, and we'll analyze that afterwards. So those 20, that's basically all the report data sets and paginated reports. And then when it's finished here, it will do the Measure Killer logic. And now it's already asking me to remove the access. Yeah, I don't want to have access to this workspace. That's fine. And you can see here now it's running through everything. 593, this means we have around 600 columns and measures in all those reports and models. Okay, so now I have a slightly different output, but this is really what's giving me the full picture. I can see the number of uses, so the mostly used columns are used 30 times. You can see it's used in visual level filters, in visuals, in report level measures, paginated reports, all kinds of stuff. We have an icon map. It's used somewhere in Power Query. So here it's the same thing as before. This is really the interesting part, right? 22% is unused. That's how much I could gain potentially. So I could cut down my file size to around 80% of what it is now. And then I could also write to the model and remove those artifacts for the stuff in Power Query. If you analyze the dataset online, we don't really do anything there yet. So you would need to have the dataset open and remove or amend basically the Power Query code. And in a later version, we will also automate that, but not yet. Yeah. So, okay, that's, do we have any questions? Otherwise, I will jump to the really new part of the tool.
Still no questions?
All right. So, so what we have been working on the last 2 months, I would say, is this tenant analysis. Because we see that a lot of organizations, they are kind of overwhelmed with their tenant. They have no idea what's going on. So we built this thing here that is, it works the same way as before. So I still it's using the authentication token from before, and it's giving me an overview of the whole tenant. You can see now I have 122 workspaces, 200 reports, 130 models. And I have all of them here, including a nice view of everything. So I see the workspace, right? Is it a pro workspace? Is it a premium workspace? How many reports are in the workspaces? How many paginated reports? How many models? Do I have access or not with my personal user? What capacity are those workspaces in? And then, for example, I can decide to do some further analysis. So this is just a basic selection. You can see this is the selection. And then I can run this thing on my whole tenant if I want. Yeah. We also can see that we even see the personal workspaces here. We cannot really, we can see what's going on inside them. Maybe we can open up one of them. Actually, let's look at my workspace. So this is my personal workspace. You can see I have 5 reports in there, 1 model. And yeah, in some cases, maybe it might be interesting to see what is going on. If I want to select all and just run this thing, meaning we get a lot more information when I run, but it will also take some time, then I can just click here. I've already done this before, so I'm just going to open the other window. Here we go. So this is the output that I get when I run it on the whole workspace. You can see it took 460 seconds. So we would have to wait, what was this, 8 minutes or something. So it's better to do this before. But that gives you a crazy amount of information. You can see, for example, the size of all your models in the tenant. You can see how many custom visuals are in the reports, in all the reports connected to that model. Yeah, we know that custom visuals are a huge black box for people. That's why we put a big emphasis on those here in the tenant analysis. When I open the data set, I can see all the connected reports. I can see where they are. I can also see, for example, that somebody built a report in a pro workspace. I can open those reports. I can see how many pages those have, if we have hidden pages or not. I can go into the pages and I can see the page names. I can even go down to the visuals. Yeah. If I open the tables of the dataset, I can see some information there. I can see the size. I can see the column names. I can also take a look into the measures. Here we can also see the DAX expression. We can see if it's a normal measure or somebody built report level measures in some of those reports on top of the data set. I can get a lot of stuff out of this view, especially when I start searching. For example, I said custom visuals, right? One of my favorite custom visuals is the icon map. So if I hit the search all levels here, I can say icon map. And now, if I go to expand, you can see basically that it gives me all the reports. Or wait a second, let me just reset this. It gives me all reports where we have the icon map present. Obviously, this is a lot, but still, this is super useful to some people. Generally, what I can see is the custom visuals. Let me see. Yeah, so does anybody, for example, we can try it out. What is your favorite custom visuals? Yeah.
I like the ribbon chart, is it?
Ribbon, I'm not sure if we have that. Nope, doesn't look like we have that.
What about Deneb?
Deneb, yeah, I guess we have it here. One. Yeah, we have Deneb once here. So that's really easy, right? To search. And what else can I do here? I can see the number of report level measures. I can also see, for example, if it didn't fully analyze something. Oh, so actually the ones that I opened here, they didn't even have any custom visuals. That's why I was looking for this. Here you can see the connected Power BI reports, right? And this is the one I built in my personal workspace. I can see it, but I cannot really open it, so we don't really get the report layout, but we see that there's something going on there. And that way we also get this lineage again. But here I can have a whole view of the custom visuals, and those are all custom visuals that are present in those reports. And I can see which ones are used and which ones are not used. It means that all of those visuals are in some of those reports, but maybe nobody ended up building a visual with them. So those are all the ones that are put into the report, but never really ended up in a visual, besides the icon map and this enlighten world flags. Yeah. Okay. What else can I do here? We can, I think we can also see, yeah, local date tables. That's also something interesting. Local, I have to search all levels. You can see we have one crazy model with 220 tables. Absolute disaster. And also, obviously, most of them are local date tables. So you can search through the tenant basically and see which models have local date tables. Actually, this mess data set is very interesting because we only have one report. And this report has 51 hidden pages and only one unhidden page. And then if I jump into the report section, you can also see, for example, you can sort by how many pages does a report have, how many visuals. The mess report has 1,100 visuals. So yeah, that is maybe also interesting because this is running through the whole tenant, right? So you can see exactly what is going on in those reports. Any questions?
Questions in the chat? No?
Okay, so yeah, like I said, this is still an unfinished version, but I think it maybe provides some interesting insights, and we're still looking for feedback to further develop this. If somebody has some good ideas, please let us know. We have a feedback section also generally for Measure Killer on the website. We can see that we already have some hundreds of comments. People tell us all kinds of bugs and things they would like to see. So yeah, if you're curious about this tool, try it out, let us know. what you think. And if you have any good ideas for this tenant analysis, especially, what is really hard to do now, yeah, let me know, and maybe we can develop something.
I would
Thank
have.
you.
Oh, clever. So what about data flows? Can you also show those and dependencies on data flows?
Data flow. So we're trying to build the whole lineage, but we don't have data sources and data flows yet. So we start basically from the data set and then go all the way into the visual. But I would say maybe in around 3 months, probably we'll have everything, because people want to say, hey, I want to search for this data source and then see what is actually happening across the tenant, right? And makes sense.
Yeah.
But
I imagine, especially if you want to go over to Fabric, it will be interesting to see which data flows you even have to care about.
right. Yeah, true. Thanks.
Super cool. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Gregor. Probably one feedback, what I would have as an idea is the custom visuals. I think the next step would be interesting in how many users are using this report and have access to it, so that I know how many users I have to license on the custom visual.
But isn't that automatic now? That don't you have this new API for custom visuals?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can go
So
this way. That's true.
Microsoft is taking care of that for us.
Yeah, that's true. Didn't have that in mind. Okay. Right. Any further questions, comments, feedback? Doesn't look like. So let me then take over one more time to finish up today's session. Just gonna, okay. Button doesn't want to share. We are back. So we had Measure Kickoff. Thank you very much, Gregor, one more time. And as mentioned, just gonna wrap up today's session. For those who are interested in further learning resources of Fabric, and Power BI, feel free to check out the blog. And there is as well like an MVP section, which or who are posting about Microsoft Fabric. And for, well, as a reminder for the next session, 1st of February, again at the same time, from 4 to 6 p.m. Swiss time, we will have Alex and Roman from Allgeier, who will present us a little bit of Fabric stuff, let's say, how to use metadata-driven orchestration to migrate. Really looking forward to it. I know a little bit what's behind, so they're migrating from Cognos to Fabric. Really looking forward to it. So I don't know, Alex, probably you wish to say again a few words here?
Yeah, I can do a bit of advertising. So we'll present a project we started in August and completed effectively New Year's Eve on migrating an organization to Fabric from an on-premise SQL data warehouse, SSIS driven SQL scripts, and a Cognos analytics engine on top of that. It was an adventure, quite a roller coaster ride. Quite a lot of duct tape was involved in getting it working, with Fabric being preview. And we'll share with you guys the journey, the architecture that we chose or we stumbled across and we used with a lot of success. And yeah, we'll be able to cover quite a few elements of Fabric. So not only data engineering, but also the elements around choosing a lakehouse versus choosing a warehouse, using notebooks for certain tasks, using data flows, Gen 2 or not, using pipelines, using live data. So I'll probably, if I have time, inject one of the reports that we also did using Custo live reporting in Fabric. So yeah, it's a pretty good showcase that'll give you an idea of all the things you can do. For Microsoft doesn't like to call it a migration; it's more an upgrade of your data platform.
Great. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to it. And with that, thank you for joining us either online or in person. For those who are interested in, the next in-person event will be on April. So the first Thursday of April. but we will obviously announce it again through LinkedIn, through the user group site and so on. And until then, it will be online. And one more time, thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too. Take care, guys. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.